It's Friday, January 3rd, 2025, and I've got an update for you on our major winter storm. And you might be thinking, what makes this winter storm major? Well, in my opinion, it's when the Winter Storm Severity Index is forecasting major impacts across a large area, which is exactly what we've got going on for our Sunday. Major impacts are forecasted in Kansas City, over towards St. Louis, Springfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Kentucky. All these places can expect considerable disruptions to daily life. We're talking about dangerous to impossible driving conditions, and we're talking about widespread closures and, some impacts on local infrastructure. This is what makes a major winter storm. And once again, this map right here is just plotting the data for Sunday. As we go into Monday, I expect that some of these reds and oranges will extend off to the east a little bit. Here's the latest watches and warnings from the National Weather Service. We've got a bunch of winter storm advisories and winter storm warnings up here in Montana down into South Dakota. We've got a lot of winter storm watches that have come out from Kansas all the way over to Ohio, some winter storm warnings in the mountains of West Virginia over here. I expect that we're going to see a lot more winter storm warnings start to be issued over here as we get a little bit closer to the event, but right now it's just a large area of winter storm watches in the main corridor of where our winter storm is going to be. Let's take a look at the future radar on the NAM here and get an idea of what we can expect as we go forward. First of all, today, our storm starts off as a heavy rainmaker in the Pacific Northwest and some pretty significant snow as well in the higher elevations, especially over towards the Intermountain West. We're going to have heavy snow at times in Idaho, down into Utah, portions of Montana, and then, of course, some of that moisture is going to skip right over the Rockies into South Dakota and Nebraska, and this is where it's going to meet up with the more moist air from the Gulf of Mexico and start forming our actual storm system. Our surface low pressure system is going to form over here in western Kansas, Texas, and portions of Oklahoma, and that's where the swirl really starts going, and everything just kind of culminates right here in the central United States. Watch how it starts to come together here as early as Saturday, January 4th at 4 p.m. We're going to see widespread freezing rain and sleet in Kansas. We're going to see light snow all the way up through Nebraska and South Dakota, and of course, we're still going to have some of that moderate to heavy snow happening over here in the Rockies, now down into Colorado as well. Fast forward a few hours, and we've got our developing storm looking a lot more organized here on Sunday, right at 1 a.m. We're going to have some heavy sleet going on in Kansas City. We're going to have some rain showers, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder in Oklahoma City over towards Little Rock. The snow's getting heavier back here in Denver up towards central portions of Nebraska. What's it going to look like a couple hours later? Well, now it looks like our full-on major winter storm, right? With heavy sleet now in St. Louis. We've got heavy rain moving into Memphis. We've got extremely heavy snow at times on the backside here in central Kansas. Now, something I want to say before we go any farther here. This model is not exactly what the radar is going to look like. And in fact, the NAM model is very notorious for overdoing dry air and warm air. So you'll notice that the rain snow line is a little bit farther north on this than what I think it's actually going to be. And also you'll notice that the snow on the front side is a little bit small. I think that this snow shield is going to be a lot more filled in and larger than this once we actually get to the event. See all that white space inside of my drawing here? I think it'll be snowing there at 4 p.m. on Sunday, with the heaviest snow certainly being where the NAM is drawing the values right now. Also, around 4 p.m., this is when we're going to start to see our severe storms start to break out from Houston up past Shreveport, past Little Rock. This is going to move towards Memphis as a damaging squall line capable of producing winds in excess of 60 miles per hour and some isolated tornadoes. Freezing rain will be breaking out here in south central Kentucky over towards southern portions of Illinois and Indiana as well by 7 p.m. And in fact, some of these places will have been seeing freezing rain since 1 p.m., so that's going to be a big problem. It should be snowing quite heavily at this point in St. Louis, and the snow continues in Kansas City. We're going to start to see our first snow showers breaking out in places like Pittsburgh, likely around 1 a.m. on Monday. Freezing rain continues for places like Lexington, Kentucky, and Louisville around 1 a.m. as well. And then we should be all snow in St. Louis at this time. And also, some of the longest duration freezing rain is going to be taking place in southern Missouri, and it's around this time where the really cold air starts coming in and we're going to switch over to snow. So I'm really concerned about southern Missouri over here because we're likely going to have somewhat of an ice storm down here with about a half inch of accumulation in some areas, and then we're going to see a little bit of snow on top of that, and then the frigid cold temperatures are going to come in, plunging the thermometer down to near 0 Fahrenheit. And if we've got power outages and stuff, that could cause a lot of problems. Snow in Indianapolis still by 10 a.m. Monday, we're going to start to see snow also working into New Jersey, sleet in places like Washington, D.C. And then this is as far out as our model goes, but it does look like we're going to continue to see an impactful winter storm for the rest of the day on Monday over here in the east. How much snow are we talking about? Well, through January 7th by 1 p.m., it looks like we're going to be talking about a very large corridor from Kansas City all the way over to Pittsburgh, where it's very likely that we see 3 to 10 inches of snow. The hot spot being right here in eastern Illinois, central Indiana, and western Ohio. This is where I'm comfortable saying that we expect 5 to 10 inches of snow in those areas, with Indianapolis expecting around 10 inches of snow, Cincinnati probably closer to 5 inches. And then, of course, places like Pittsburgh can expect about 6 inches as well. And then once we get into the higher elevations of the central Appalachians, there's going to be a couple places that see over a foot of snow. But outside of the Appalachian Mountains, the hot spot's definitely going to be right there around Indianapolis. Hey, Future Ryan here. I realize the model that I've been showing, it does a pretty good job of showing the totals over this way, but it really underdoes the western side. I want to make it very clear that people in northern Missouri back towards Kansas City, in northern Kansas, northeastern Kansas especially, are expected to get a lot of snow. In fact, this might be where we see the most snow, over a foot of snow right there around Kansas City, and especially in northern Missouri. Get ready. It's coming. Now let's talk about ice. Once again, through January 6th at 7 a.m., we're going to be looking at a large swath of accumulating ice from Kansas through Missouri into southern Illinois and Indiana, through Kentucky, and then of course over into the Appalachian Mountains as well. The hot spot here looks to be an area just south of St. Louis over towards central Kentucky. Anywhere in here could see a half inch of ice all the way up to 3/4 of an inch of ice. This could cause significant problems, especially around Morehead, Kentucky, Lexington, Louisville, Kentucky, Paducah, Evansville, over towards Springfield, and of course right around the Mark Twain National Forest in south central Missouri. This is where I expect to see the biggest and most detrimental impacts from ice over the next couple of days. Now, there's also some places outside of that I could also see some negative impacts, but I think that the worst of it is definitely going to be right in there along the Ohio River. Most of us that see ice from this storm are going to fall in the level 1 category here, where we expect some isolated or localized utility interruptions, typically only lasting a few hours. However, especially in that area that I just circled around Louisville, Lexington, back towards south central Missouri, there's quite a few places that will likely experience utility interruptions lasting 12 to 24 hours. Roads and travel conditions may be extremely hazardous due to ice accumulation in this area. Now, I think that's going to be the worst of it. I think that most of us are going to be in the level 1 or 2, but in a worst case scenario where we get a little bit more cold air, or maybe we get some convective freezing rain, especially in southern Missouri, it's possible that we see some places, some small pockets reaching the level 3 criteria here, where we have numerous utility interruptions with some damage to main feeder lines and equipment expected. Tree damage is going to be excessive here, and outages could last up to 5 days. Once again, that's not going to be widespread, but there could be small pockets in Missouri, southern Illinois, especially where this could happen. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got daggone severe weather to talk about. Day 3, slight risk from Houston up to Memphis. This includes Lake Charles, Shreveport, and Jackson as well. A lot of the same areas that we were talking about the other day when we were live. The good news with this one is the severe weather doesn't look quite as intense as what we saw the other day on December 28th. This one looks like it's going to be a little bit more manageable, but still a dangerous squall line of severe storms is expected with damaging winds, and there is a chance for some isolated tornadoes, but I don't think we're going to see a tornado outbreak like we saw on December 28th. Right, here's the culprit coming in on Sunday around 1 p.m. We're really going to see the trough digging right here, allowing for that warm, moist air to collide with the frigid Arctic air coming in. The trough, the overall setup looks very similar to December 28th, but the warm sector isn't quite as wide, and there's actually going to be a lot more forcing here, so the trough is a little bit more pronounced and it's going to be moving a lot faster. The ejection is happening faster, so that cold air is going to ram up against the warm air in a way that doesn't allow for isolated, discrete cells as much. It's going to be a big, giant line of storms, and that's likely going to lead to damaging wind being the main threat and not necessarily tornadoes. But that, of course, could change, and if it does, we will be the first to let you know. And once again, a big thing driving these storms is the very warm air out in front of the frigid air and the collision between them. And we're talking about some pretty warm air. It's going to be 30 to 40 degrees above average over here in Mississippi right before the storm hits. And then right behind that, it's going to be 20 to 30 degrees below average in Kansas and Oklahoma. But watch what happens with these temperatures as we push this forward, man. This storm system is going to usher in a very cold period for the eastern United States. We're going to be close to 30 degrees below average where we have the snow on the ground back here in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. And then we're going to be 15 to 20 degrees below average for the vast majority of the central and eastern U.S. for weeks to come. This is going to be the beginning of a very cold period in the United States, unless you're in the Southwest over here where things are going to stay above average for quite some time. Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., it could be -6 degrees in St. Louis, and that's not the wind chill. Okay, that's the actual temperature. -6 in St. Louis, -2 in portions of southern Indiana, near 0 through a lot of Kentucky, even getting into northern portions of Oklahoma and Arkansas. We're going to be in the teens. Okay, so this is some dangerous cold, especially if some people have power outages to deal with in this area. That's nothing to not take seriously. You definitely want to make sure you've got the generator gassed up and all that good stuff if you're out here in the areas that are expecting heavy snow, ice, and then these kinds of temperatures right after. So there you have it. This is day 3 of updating you on our major winter storm. Tomorrow will be my last video on this before Sunday, as it does look like we're probably going to go live Sunday. If for whatever reason we don't go live on Sunday, then I'll do another video Sunday morning with a final update. But right now, tomorrow we'll do our final update and we'll give exact totals on what we think is going to fall with rain, snow, and sleet, and freezing rain. We'll do one final overview on the severity of the severe weather, and then we'll probably be live on Sunday covering everything. So make sure you get them YAL meters out, dust them off. It's been a while since we've had to use them out here. And of course, make sure you're being safe and you're preparing if you're going to be impacted by some of this freezing rain. That could be a big deal, okay? Otherwise, tomorrow we'll also have some more information for you guys farther east. I know that we've been focusing a lot on Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, that area for today's video, but that's just because we know a lot more about those areas. Farther east, we'll have more data tomorrow and we'll get you up to speed on what's going to happen over there in like Washington, D.C., Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, that area, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and share the video. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.